SiriusXM keeps truck drivers informed and entertained with coast-to-coast coverage across the U.S. and Canada. Listen to what you love from anywhere on the road with 24/7 ad-free music plus sports, news, talk, and comedy. Hear your favorites on every haul for just $6.06 a month. Sign up at SiriusXMFleet.com. Welcome to The Long Haul, the podcast dedicated to empowering small carriers and owner-operators to drive their business forward. I'm your host, Adam Wingfield, bringing you insights from industry leaders, real-world success stories, and strategies to help you navigate the road to profitability. Whether you're just getting started or looking to take your fleet to the next level, this is the show where trucking meets opportunity. So buckle up, it's time to go the distance. Welcome back to The Long Haul, the show where we go beyond the headlines and get into the real stories, real strategies, and we're having real lessons from real people who are moving the industry forward. I'm your host, Adam Wingfield, and whether you're behind the wheel, in the office, or just trying to figure out your next move in this business, this podcast is built for you. This episode is powered by our partners at SiriusXM, the platform that keeps carriers connected, informed, and entertained, whether you're running solo or managing a growing small fleet. We appreciate their support and bringing their conversations to life. Today's guest and today's episode, you definitely want to pay particular close attention to, because we're going to be talking about Reefer today, and not that kind of reefer. We're going to be talking about refrigerated freight, and we're going to be talking about what some companies are doing to really hone in on that niche and dive into it. So today I'm joined by two guests today from the FreshX team. I'm excited to be joined today by Clay and Nick with FreshX. Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, for sure.
Adam, thanks for having us on.
Yeah. So, Nick, you spent 6 years on the shipper side at C.H. Robinson, specifically on the food and beverage side. And from that side of the table, what were the biggest green flags and red flags that you look for when you were choosing a new carrier or partner?
Yeah. I think that I would learn a lot after the first load with a new carrier.
Yeah.
Level of communication was always really key. Quickness of response. Because being on the shipper side, I'm getting a lot of pressure from my customers. They want to know where their product is, and they want to know when it's going to be arriving, and they really want to, my job is to give them that confidence that it's going to be getting where it needs to go when it needs to get there. And so having a carrier who's able to help me get that done was huge. If we can provide good service, we can start winning consistency on those lanes and start feeding those carriers more and more business, and really start working together to consistently provide strong service to that shipper. So that first load, I would learn a lot about what that relationship was going to look like moving forward.
And so, and Clay, when you started off in this business, take us back before FreshX and your journey in terms of what landed you here. Take us back a few steps and bring us up to speed to what put you into this particular environment.
Sure. Yeah. So in a past life, I actually worked in the financial services space, and I was trading bonds, working in private equity, and ended up transitioning to supply chain. I worked at a freight tech company one summer, and then ended up starting a company in the last mile delivery space. So we were building out a carrier business in Chicago for last mile delivery in the food and beverage sector, and that worked out a little bit, but eventually that pivoted and turned into a brokerage business. And so we opened a freight brokerage in Chicago. We had a handful of customers. We were shipping a lot of refrigerated products. And we kept hearing about Reefer LTL and hearing that that's the big pain point. Our customers kept asking for it, and we started to use it as a way to stand out ourselves and find new customers. And so we ended up we saw a gap though for a product, for a technology product, and that's why we ended up shutting down the brokerage and building out FreshX as it is today, which is a software company. So a little bit of a windy path, but we all ended up in the same place. So
So you still get to Disney World on a windy street. So if you think about it, so you guys built a name for yourself, with Reefer LTL, which is a space a lot of small carriers avoid simply because they don't understand it. LTL, when you think about LTL as a whole anywhere, it's really kind of dominated by, primary players. But specifically in the Reefer LTL, what made it such a powerful tool for getting your foot in the door for what you guys are doing?
yeah. So I guess back when we were a brokerage, this was from the brokerage perspective, but most brokers will turn down Reefer LTL. They don't
Why is that?
want to work in Reefer LTL. They're because it's hard, and it's really hard to get price quotes from carriers. So you even if you know it's first of all, it's hard to know which carriers are going to be good at which lanes, right? Like which carriers are good to begin with, and then which ones are going to be able to have an attractive rate, have reliable service to a specific city or a specific facility. It's impossible to know all that across 100 plus carriers in the US that specialize in this mode. So it's as a broker, it's just like a total headache to stay on top of everything. And you have all these siloed regional operators that have their own specialized operation, and they're doing, seafood from Virginia down the East Coast, or they're doing chilled from Wisconsin out to the West Coast and frozen back from the Pacific Northwest. And you can't track this whole web of carriers very well, even with spreadsheets. And so a lot of brokers just avoid it and they say no, and that creates an opportunity because the folks who can do it, the brokers, the carriers who can do it, it's a really nice way for them to start a conversation with a shipper.
So when I think about a LTL, which if you don't know, if you're listening to this and not really familiar with LTL, the less than truckload space, right? When you talk about truckload, you talk about 53 foot, but when you go into LTL, that's anything that's on the less than truckload side. Reefer LTL is very, very unique because dry vans leverage LTL all the time. You see dry freight being moved through the LTL mode in a variety of different ways, but in unique sense, there still is a big demand for reefer freight on the LTL side. Am I not correct about that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would say even more so today than ever. Like if you think about, going to Costco and the weird new brand of garlic dip that they're selling there, right? They're not buying, 26 pallet loads of the new garlic dip. They're buying 3 or 4 pallets. And so as you see these kind of um, new, innovative kind of temperature controlled brands on the shelves, behind those is a lot of reefer LTL freight.
Now, do you find yourself on the FreshX side and just go back? I mean, we don't even have to go back. We can go back to just reefer LTL. Do you find that you don't have carriers that understand that, hey, if I've got a 26-foot box truck with a reefer on it, that would qualify me to operate within that reefer LTL space or LTL space, but I just don't know how to approach it. I don't know what the qualifications are. Walk me through that, and as far as securing capacity from that side.
Yeah, so I guess there's most of our carriers, our reefer LTL carriers, are consolidators. So they're not running multi stops with a truck. They have a facility and they're consolidating out the facility, and they're shipping out usually once a week on the lanes they run. Maybe they have standing appointments with a number of consignee facilities, but they generally are picking up in like 100 miles around this warehouse and then shipping out from there. And that'll be a temperature controlled warehouse with the right specs for the lanes that they're running. You do have folks who are running more of like expedited options with sprinter vans and box trucks, um, and that's an attractive alternative to like LTL consolidation, because LTL consolidation takes 5 to 12 days to
Yes.
get from the origin to the destination. And a lot of times there are shippers who need expedited service. They need it to get there in 2 days. And LTL consolidation just isn't always a fit. And in those cases, you would want a Sprinter van option. So we started in the consolidation space. We do have one company that provides Sprinter van services on our platform and box trucks. It's a little cheaper than a truckload, but it's a lot faster than LTL. And so it's sort of a case where you have specialized capacity, and it's really hard to find the demand that's a good fit for that, right? Like the shipper who needs something, a small batch shipment, but they also need expedited service, and your truck's in the area. That's really hard to find.
So, why are these economic trends, and specifically, what are they pushing shippers more towards more consolidation in LTL solutions, especially in the food and beverage sides, based on what you guys are seeing?
I mean, I think that, you hear about just-in-time inventory. You hear about these uh these retailers kind of as this space consolidates, and you see Kroger buying up more banners, you see Albertsons buying up more banners, you see Walmart dominating this space more. The leverage of these retailers is going up. And so one of the ways that they exercise that leverage over their vendors is smaller order quantities. And so you know, I would probably argue that as the retailers become more consolidated, which they will continue to do, you're going to see these order quantities shrink, um, and you'll see some. You'll see fewer 20 pallet orders, and you'll see more 5 pallet orders. And so that creates a really interesting opportunity for a entrepreneurial carrier who says, "Hey, how can we capitalize on this, and how can we take advantage of this changing environment?"
So when you talk about if there's what should a small reefer carrier be thinking about if they want to tap into that business? Are there real opportunities? Do you think the barriers are still high? Like the audience you're speaking to now, if they're listening, if we got some box truck guys out here, or you've got some carriers that are looking to get into space, talk directly to them about what they should be thinking about.
I think you'd want to look around at the. I mean, I'm kind of just like going off the cuff here, but I think you'd want to look around at the large food distribution centers that are in your market, and think about um, trying to build a strategy around those. Maybe think about trying to develop a relationship with those that local U.S. Foods facility, or local KeHE, or Walmart DC, um, and using that relationship to start to engage with food and beverage shippers, and try to build out um, a density of customers, because that's really the key to operating a good consolidation program. Is you need to there's kind of a critical mass of density that you need to achieve, so that while you're accepting these partial orders, you have a level of confidence that there's enough of those week in and week out to fill up your truck, and to make sure that it's going to be the economics make sense for you. So that's really kind of square one, is how do I start? How do you go about building that density?
So you joined FreshX after seeing, the potential of the platform. What exactly does FreshX unlock that wasn't previously possible when it come down to LTL reefer movement? Because it's very interesting.
I mean, the biggest win for FreshX from the carrier perspective is that traditionally these carriers, um, they've very much shied away from working with brokers, because they don't want to spend their time quoting out 15, 20 orders for a load that they might not ever win. Because it is a little bit more complicated for these guys to quote out a 3 pallet, 4,500
Yeah.
pound order versus like a dock to dock truckload. It takes a little bit. There's more behind it. Um, and so, because of that, these reefer LTL carriers have really shied away from engaging with the brokerage community in large part. Um, the big unlock of FreshX is it takes that front end quoting off of the carrier's plate.
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden that's happening on FreshX, out of sight, not of mind for the carrier. the broker's running all these quotes and they're trying to win the load. And then when that first load finally hits, that's the point that they get introduced to the carrier. So there's freight on the table, there's a price in place, the load details are there, and there's a very high likelihood that at this point the carrier engaging with that broker and starting the conversation, they're probably going to win a load. They're probably going to get some freight out of it.
So you're working, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're currently working on a tool that connects brokers to box trucks and sprinters. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, we're not working on it. It's live. We don't have that many box trucks or sprinter carriers on the platform yet. We've been more focused on capturing the full refrigerated LTL market and making sure we
Mhm.
have a lot of options nationwide there. But we're getting to the point where we're ready to expand into the expedited service market. So we are looking for those folks, and we're chatting with a couple of private fleets as well who have some options there, and they're looking to fill deadheads and backhauls. And for them, this is a much more attractive option than posting that capacity to a load board because they're not going to have to quote anything. It's all pre-quoted through our engine, and it's a vetted broker network that's going to be booking freight on the platform. It's folks that are paying us a subscription to access it, and they're typically pretty large brokerages because they can afford that subscription. So they're reputable companies accepting their rates and then taking that capacity exactly how it is. And so it's much less of a time waste than a traditional load board might be.
And one of the features you built, is that facility finder and pool quote tool. And I think that's what we looked at. Can you explain what that means and how small fleets might benefit from that type of tech?
Yeah. So I guess the facility finder, I think you're referring to our crossdock network. It's something that we're still in the process of building out, but it's going to be almost like a directory with a map attached to it for cold storage cross-docking. So OS&D is a big problem in temp control. Think pallets get rejected because it's too close to expiration, or it needs to be reworked, or you missed your appointment. And now the onus of that falls on sometimes the carrier, sometimes the shipper, sometimes the broker. But what do you do with that pallet? And the crossdock network is really just going to be a tool to run a search in your area and quickly find facilities that have the services that you need, and be able to price those services and book them. So it'll just be a much nicer way to handle that than the status quo today, which is running a Google search and trying to find an option, calling up a bunch of warehouses until you find one that's going to be a good fit. So this is something I think it is something that will be valuable to small fleets who need that kind of capacity.
Yeah. And I'll just add, that's best case scenario. And the status quo now is that you actually find a warehouse.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, what happens oftentimes is, you miss your appointment at a Walmart DC and you end up having to wait over the weekend until you get a new appointment on Monday. So if you're working with a broker who has access to this map, the chances that they're going to be able to quickly find you a facility to get those pallets off your truck, and so you can go make your backhaul pickup, it's a much higher likelihood of that.
No, that's a huge win that's a huge win, period. From a detained standpoint, the amount of money that driver that loses every day that they have to sit, especially with a refrigerated product on the truck, because then now I'm burning even more fuel at that point. So I think it's important. That's a heck of a win when it comes down to it, especially at scale. Right, you get more brokers that can utilize and leverage the network. It'd be a lot supportive to the community. Now, you mentioned a rise of new tech and brokerage. What do you think? Do you think we're headed towards consolidation or an explosion of more niche, specialized carriers?
I think that's what the trend seems to be, right? There's fewer broker MCs this year than there were last year, and it seems to be continuing to consolidate. I think that proprietary technology will continue to allow the top brokers to differentiate, and And so as the technology strengthens, you'll probably see more consolidation in the brokerage space. Um, but it's pretty hard to predict. No one has a crystal ball. I think the agent model will probably proliferate. I think the agent model works really nicely because it allows the brokers to maintain the benefits of an entrepreneurial system where the broker can go out and control their own business, but they also benefit from the technology
Yeah, big
house that the
on.
parent company has. So I could see that continuing to expand.
Now, as the tech gets smarter, what skills do you think brokers and carriers need to sharpen if they want to stay competitive and not get replaced by, like AI automations, things like that?
I think the relationship's always going to be important. I think making sure you're working with the right technology vendors that support the integrations that you're going to need is really important. Make sure that you have a TMS that's focused on integrations and they're enabling all of these new services to come online. That's going to allow you to differentiate and allow you to better serve your customers. So I would say technology vendor selection is going to be pretty important because the newer systems are much more capable of integrating, and integration is going to become the key with more and more software products coming online.
So now that now we kind of understand a little bit about, hey, where's LTL? What does that mean? Where's that going? From a FreshX perspective, as a software provider, as what you guys do, if you was to sum up what you do in a common one sentence, just in the most casual language, what would that be?
Well, I'll say for the brokers at first because I got that one off the top of my head. We allow them
I'll do the
to
carriers
quote
then.
and book. We allow them to quote and book reefer. I spend all my day talking to brokers, so that's where that's the lens that I come into this conversation with. Um, but we allow brokers to quote and book reefer LTL in seconds, which is certainly not something that they could do before.
And on the carrier side, I mean, we're helping carriers fill their trucks. We're helping LTL reefer carriers add more volume on the lanes where they want to add volume. And this is more than one sentence, but we had a carrier that came to us because they were opening up Dallas outbound frozen recently, and they said, "Hey, we want you guys to help us open up this lane because we're going to be low on volume starting out." And they came to us because they knew that we have access to a lot of demand for spot reefer LTL, and that's something that we can help them grow a lot faster. So I think it's for carriers, it's expanding new businesses is something that they see a lot of value in our platform. It's also free for carriers, so it's
Even
there's that
better.
too.
Even better. So if you're a carrier and they have one or two reefer units, LTL reefer units, and they came to you today, hey, I went in on this reefer LTL space. What advice would you give them? What would you say to them? Are they welcome at FreshX?
We'll talk to them. Yeah, we've currently we've been working primarily with consolidators. We want to open it up to folks who are looking to do expedited service with full truckloads. So we'd love to chat with them. I don't know if we have something ready off the shelf for them to plug into today, but would love to work with them to build towards something in the future.
So what do you think, even Nick, you've been on the shipper side at CH, tech side has been well represented. Clay, you've been on the financial side, so you understand a little bit more of that as well. So, I mean, what do you think most reefer carriers are doing wrong when it comes to positioning themselves with specifically food shippers?
I mean,
Um,
one thing I would say is I think marketing is one thing that I think they could be doing better. A lot of carriers don't have a website, and I think that just shows these days it shows like a lack of professionalism, and I think it's a lot of not every shipper, but a lot of shippers expect that and expect that like that business cover for the carrier. So I think that just having an online presence is just a really kind of low lift thing that a lot of carriers can do to stand out if they're interested in direct shipper business. That's something that I think can help out.
Nick, were you going to add on to that, or?
No, I think that's a great place to take it. Make it easy for folks to find you. I think is a good way to sum that up.
So you guys, did you attend? I think you attended the Broker Carrier Summit. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
Yeah. What was so you got an audience of small carriers and you got an audience of brokers. What was the benefit from your perspective? And in that, what were you looking for to gain from the networking side of it? Were you looking to gain more relationships with brokers that can feed onto the platform, or were you looking to gain from that ability to be able to leverage the capacity of the carriers that were there? What was the whole? What was your game strategy?
I mean, my job was definitely I was more focused on talking to the brokers and getting folks signed up and getting these guys, getting more freight on our platform to feed the carriers that are there today. Um, that was my focus. But Clay, I don't want to speak for you, but I know that Clay spent a lot of time talking to more folks in the carrier community and um, you know, just seemed like generally learning a bit more about kind of how they operate. I don't want to speak for you, Clay, but um,
Yeah. I mean, I was also talking to brokers and trying to grow revenue for our company, but at the same time, we find these conferences pretty valuable just to talk to brokers and carriers and just get feedback on different potential paths that we could take the company. Would they find more value if we pursue X versus Y, and just feel out different ideas and then just learn from their feedback. Talk to other technology vendors and find out what they're doing and seeing if there's things that we can learn from them. One example is I heard from a carrier, as well as a couple of brokers, about we were talking a lot about detention times, and when you basically we had an idea about predicting detention times for specific facilities based on the time of the day, the time of the week, the commodity, the carrier, the actual facility. And if you could get a little bit more accurate in detention times for that facility, it would improve rating and routing pretty significantly. And I talked to one technology vendor that was building a routing product that was telling me how they were incorporating detention time estimates into their routing product for multi-stop truckloads. So I think it's helpful to just get a lot of feedback on different trends, on different things that we're considering, and your knowledge is power. So like the more you can learn from the community and learn from your customers and your partners, the better.
What's the goal 5 years from now for FreshX? Where do you see FreshX 5 years from now?
Yeah, we want to continue to grow. We want to add a lot more capacity. So we want to expand outside of refrigerated LTL consolidation and expand into different types of transportation and storage. We think that our goal with this is to build a multimodal cold storage services network that can plug into different systems via API. So if an owner operator wanted to post their backhaul capacity for a trip they booked, they could easily post that to our platform. We could help them automatically price it at a rate that'll help them get it booked, but isn't too cheap, and then have that automatically get posted to our network, which isn't a load board. It's an API network, which is in all the shipper facing brokerage portals, potentially shipper products as well. But it's an API network that helps that capacity in search of demand live anywhere it needs to be. So that's where we want to be. We want to keep making it easier to find the best possible services for shippers and brokers.
Now, for a carrier that finds FreshX, when you look at it, what is the benefit for them to use that FreshX platform versus any other platform when it comes down to it? What's your competitive advantage?
For carriers, it's revenue right now. So for Reefer LTL carriers, um, this product we don't really have competitors. There's not really another Reefer LTL network out there. So right now, our carriers they see a lot of value in this, in just being able to get more volume. We send them loads pre-quoted at their rates from customers that have a load in hand on their lanes, and they don't have to spend time quoting. They don't have to, um, you know, do a lot of the extra work in terms of finding that business. It's just sent straight to them, and it's free for them. So it's kind of we try to make it as much of a no-brainer as we can for carriers, because carriers are very important to us, and we need a lot of the refrigerated LTL carriers across the U.S. to make this work, because there's not that many of them.
Oh, it's not that many that know that there's a benefit to using refrigerated LTL, because when you think about that, if I got a 53-foot reefer trailer and maybe the lane that I'm operating in on the way back to my head haul is a limited lane, using the LTL strategy or using that lane for that, I could potentially maximize that. So there's opportunity for me as a carrier if I've got the equipment. There's opportunity for me to be either LTL or truckload, depending on how I want to operate or how I know that operation. As long as it's worthwhile and it's beneficial to me financially and it makes sense, and positioning from a positioning strategy, it would make sense that I can be Mr. Truckload half the time and I can be on my backside, I can be LTL half the time, or it just depends on what that mix may look like. But what they don't know, and I think the biggest thing is a lot of carriers don't know that the partial LTL mix is a great alternative to your backhaul strategy that you're using, or your truckload strategy. But you just have to know how that operates. And like you said, it might not be a multi-stop. It might be just a 5 pallet situation. How would that price out work? Would it make sense for me to position in that way? And I think a lot of times in a small carrier space, it's just not understood. It's not talked about a lot, right? So it's not something that, we don't have these type of conversations on the small carrier side where LTL is a consideration, but it's a tremendous opportunity if it was understood from that perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think putting yourself out there, like we were talking about before, like being helping that freight find you, because there is freight for every carrier, where each carrier is the best fit depending on where their assets are. It's just the network; it's constantly changing, but there's always freight that's a very good fit. But you have to use products like Cargado and like FreshX that help carriers get in front of the folks who have the freight in hand.
So FreshX as a platform, you mentioned that, hey, you got customers has the information and it's quoted onto the platform. So is FreshX, is it brokers on the platform, or is it brokers and shippers, or is it shippers on the platform? So who's doing what?
Yeah, it's mostly brokers on the platform. So our platform is it's particularly useful for spot reefer LTL, which is a bit more broker heavy. So it's mostly brokers on the platform, but there's a good amount of volume. We're seeing roughly 10,000 quotes a month right now, and we launched we launched like 6 months ago. So it's growing really fast. There's a lot of volume happening, but it's mostly broker volume today.
Wow. And what are you guys doing to address fraud when it comes down to fraud being on these platforms? What type of protection tools are in place to assure that the carriers on the other side are protected?
We have a vetting process. I think my co-founder knows a little bit more about that. Um, but we have a vetting process. We check um, different services to vet that our customers are legitimate. But a lot of times it's not really needed, because most of the brokers on our platform are pretty large brokerages. Like they're folks who have enough volume of refrigerated LTL that they're going to pay us a subscription to get access to this platform. So it's been something to date where, like, most of the brokers that are our customers, you'd know their name, you'd recognize them. We don't typically, for like a small brokerage or a fraudulent brokerage, it just, like, it doesn't even make sense to pursue.
So where can folks learn more about FreshX as a platform, follow what you're doing? maybe as a carrier, join the network? What does that look like? Is there a process for the carriers to set up and join?
Yep. Yeah. Reach out through our website, getfreshx.com, and fill out the inquiry form on there, and we're happy to chat. So whether you're interested as a carrier, as a customer, happy to show you the platform, and we love to bounce around ideas too. And if you have ideas on how we could make this a more useful, more attractive offering for smaller carriers, smaller fleets, I would love to chat about that as well.
Well, I will tell you that that is a very, very quiet niche that should get more attention. Especially when you think about and let's be realistic too. If you consolidate the top 10 truckload companies to today, you might get a total consolidation of about 300,000 tractors and maybe 800,000 trailers. And that's taking all of the top trucking companies and saying, hey, we're shutting down and we're going to create a company called Voltron Trucking, which is all of the largest trucking companies coming in together and consolidate. And you'll get about 300,000 tractors. But if you take all of the small carriers that are out there and do the same thing with the small carriers, it'll be well over 1 million of available trucks and trailers that you have access to. So I'm very, 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 very small carrier heavy when it comes down to the impact that they have on this business. The industry moves by small carrier, and we look at 9 out of every 10 truck is a small carrier operation. And when there's an opportunity to better provide solutions and things like Reefer LTL or whatever that's out there, the education side on it, if the carrier knew and they were well educated from that perspective on how they could get and how it would make sense, or educating them on how it makes sense, I think that would bring such tremendous value when it comes down to a capacity side, but then also taking care of your customers too, because you'll have freight that's moved. Because let's be honest, if I don't understand the LTL model, I might have an empty truck that I'm deadheading 500 miles that, I could have stopped by, picked up 3 pallets, and at least put a little bit of money on that truck on the way through. I didn't know the model. So I think that's the biggest thing when it comes down to the industry is the education side. And I really appreciate the fact that you guys are in such a small space in that reefer LCL space, and you're able to operate within that niche. It's just so much capacity out there that's not touched in a small carrier space that it'd be a great opportunity to take those two and just intersect those verticals. So I'm glad we're able to kind of talk through that.
Yeah, I think that's right. And if any of these, the small carriers who are listening to this do want to get in touch and have a conversation with me or Clay or our other co-founder Lance, and just have a conversation about the space and how we think about the opportunity, where we see the opportunity, um, you know, reach out on our website. We'd be excited to have that conversation. Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. Well, today we really wanted to just focus on niche, and today's niche was LTL reefer, which is a very, very dialed in niche. There was an example that Nick made a few minutes ago that, hey, it may not be that 22 pallets of garlic sauce. It might be just the 3 to 5 pallets of garlic sauce that gets ordered. Where does that go? And how does that get to the end user? So it's important in transportation, especially on a small carrier side, to understand that there are so many different dynamics in so many different verticals that you can potentially operate within. It's finding that niche that works best for you and operating within that niche. But then we talked about building a relationship side and the fact that, hey, you go to these opportunities to build relationships and determine and build your business based on those niches. We talked about freight. We talked about FreshX and its tech shift on how it's focused heavily on the tech side. The future of it would to be more and more multimodal by using API integrations to really kind of bring one cohesion together. And then we just talked about the future of freight brokerages as far as sort of the consolidation piece and what that would look like. So really appreciate Clay and Nick for joining us today on today's episode of the Long Haul, and really as we focus specifically on niche operations. And if you have the opportunity to look those guys up, check them out, see what they're doing, reach out to them, connect with them, because we do think, I think personally that if it's me, I'm just going to tell you right now, if I got a 53-foot reefer, I'm opening up my eyes to anything at this point. If it makes sense, if it makes business sense, I want to talk to you. So appreciate the time today on this Long Haul podcast episode. Until next week, be safe, be profitable, and take care.